Hi and welcome to the Drawing Database. Again, Professor Marc Leone here, and today we're going to look at and spend 15 minutes with the drawings of Francois Boucher, a French Rococo painter, lived during the Enlightenment era of Western human European and American thought from 1703 and died in 1770, and very much a Parisian artist and a painter and a portraitist and a excellent top-notch draftsman of that era, Rococo era, a painter primarily of the storied bourgeois upper class, the aristocracy, and also the stories and myths of that day, and also historical works from time to time. So here we see a great example of Boucher. Beautiful charcoal, chalk-like rendering, stumped. We see the stump softening here in some of the lighter areas, the mid-tone areas of the model. Then he comes back on with another layer of contour line. But beautiful control of the widths of the charcoal tip. Very much a Renaissance approach, different from the French Academy that would come a little bit later, in my opinion. And we get this bold charcoal here, heightened with the white chalk and a kind of mauve-y sort of toned paper. Beautiful contouring, and also use of the coarse shadow right in through here, and then also right there, and then the reflected light back on through that with the chamois tone, and a little bit of color in the nose you see, and also the mouth. Notice the hands, look how very much blocky they are, rendering the forms in a blocky feeling, and then giving them enough of a human quality to make them look like beautiful hands. We have a multicolored chalk portrait here of a young man. We see that also these drawings favor well to the work of Watteau and Fragonard and Boucher were three of the Rococo's finest French artists. And generally, you can think of the Rococo as more of a French style of giving life and portraiture, and the fête gallant, or the leisurely lifestyle of the rich and the aristocracy of French enlightened France before in the Revolution, for sure. And we see this quality come together in the beautiful chalk, multicolored renderings drawn mostly in red here, that sanguine, heightened with a little in the darker tones of the black, and then we see just a little seeping in the white chalk forms we see there on the beautiful, graceful parts of the model in the head, and in the light with the heads mostly in shadow. One of my favorite academic drawings from Boucher, the beautiful technique of cross-contouring in chalk, a very longer rendered model of a figure from the back. What's impressive to me are the mid-tone values that we get in his upper back here, in the control of the anatomy, but this is a very difficult study to pull off. It takes quite a bit of knowledge. I love the cross-contouring of the strokes coming across. We can see that through. He keeps that rhythm alive through the hatching mark of the background, right? We see that, and then the beautiful well-timed darks of the underarm, the hair, and the beautiful kind of angularity of the model. Really pinching in the wrist quality, pulling out the forearm, pinching back into the elbow. These are devices that were used, and not really on the model per se, but were used as enhancing devices to the drawing. This is Boucher at I think some of his best. Study of baby or children's heads, almost effortless in the beautiful approach to gesturing. We see the beautiful profile line of the three, the same children, and the beautiful underturning here of the nose to emphasize baby structure, chin pooching out. Lovely, lovely from Boucher. Very effortless. A different style from Boucher, a little softer overall, heightened with three different approaches to color there, the sanguine for fleshy tones, or to give the feeling of some life or blood-like. Notice the beautiful underturned lip structure through here, the three there, and two. two on the bottom are almost one sausage form like there on the lips. Just enough of the chin structure. This drawing could be very well done from imagination, but very soft, controlled. Gone are the tiny little lines, and in its place is a very soft and stumped, graceful quality of what is probably a figure from imagination. Here we have a couple of different techniques from Boucher here. We have the beautiful young French maid or young girl, barefoot here, probably obviously outdoors, but we can see a very much indoor lighting situation. Still outdoor painting from plein air was not something that was done to color effect like it would be in later on in another century in Paris with the Impressionists. What we do see here, though, is great control of detail, obviously. Use of three different chalks, the black, the red, and the sanguine. And for a more finished, heightened approach, we see the beautiful contouring across the fabrics, the folds here, and the cast shadows of the darks are rendered quite nice. And then we do see the stumping technique, the blending in some of the larger shadow areas, and then he redraws on top to give the beautiful purposeness of contour line. So chamoising or toning of the blended areas was never left on its own. Rather, it was used as a large, broad device and then re-rendered on top with more tone from the pencil or contour line. Beautiful black and white chalk on the toned sort of mauve or yellow paper, very much stumped. So we have the light source here from the top side left here. We see that both of the figures, mother and child, are in quite a bit of shadow. He handles it lovely, but this is a lovely study, a portrait, but also what is it really a study of? It's all the fabric and drapery that is so beautifully done, not only in terms of its edge quality, semi-soft, soft edges, harder edges for the outside, a beautiful study of edge control and quality, use of time darks, the use of charcoal, and the stumping technique, blending technique, and then drawing back on top of that to give it contouring and control. And then, of course, the beautiful three-chalked approach. He doesn't really blend the chalks together. He keeps them separate. So a lot of the mid-tone value of the paper shows quite a bit through. Try that. Try to not blend the white into the dark, and that's one technique. And then later on, you certainly can. This particular drawing is of great interest to scholars, and then it gives you a kind of wry laugh at the same time. It's used at that time. This particular pose was a French eroticism or titillation at the time, and we see the figure in what could be a compromise or a more intimate position, that we say. So every time I show students this, when we go to the Louvre or my wife sees it, we have a particular giggle. So and you can imagine why. But the control, and of course these drawing studies were done several times in painting form by Boucher and with a few different models. And the control of light, craft, value, the cross contouring across the model are just absolutely beautiful, regardless of what you think about the final product or the vulnerability, if you will, of the pose. The craft of drawing is well controlled. Notice the cast shadow on the leg here, light source coming this way, so part of her body or buttock would cast this shadow, and we get this turn here. So that's a lovely control of value, edges, and masterful control of line and line weight. Beautiful chalk drawing here, black and white. Notice a lot of the stumping, the blending that's going on to give us this nice, quick light effect. And then you can go back and tighten up that line. Very much kind of a painterly approach to these two cherubs. Notice how loose it is. Very, very loose. Different style. Boucher worked in a few different styles. A little bit more of an academic style, more akin to the Renaissance rather than the French academies, more Michelangelo-esque or Raphael. Chalks, heavier, thicker, dark passages, working with the side of the charcoal pencil and the beautiful rendering in the soft tonalities of maybe some blending in the stumping here, but not as obvious as some of the other works. where he works in charcoal, and again the craft of cross contouring, control of great anatomy to very, very great effect. Working from life. Back to charcoal and more stumping. You see the soft quality. To get that soft quality, lay that charcoal down or that chalk down, and then blend it with a stump or a cloth, and then tighten up the line work around it, contouring. But notice how it's not a hard contour. Look at the little dashes and dots that he utilizes to work his harder edges around, and then the beautiful control of the white chalk in the lighter side of the model, since they're lit left. And notice that he leaves the middle tone, that slight middle tone before the core shadow, which is the darker part of the shadow, the tone of the paper. This is something we practice in art school quite often to get. One of my all-time favorite Boucher drawings. Beautiful control, French Academy on display here with a little bit more of the Renaissance Italian style. A little bit of stumping perhaps in some of the tones, although I may not detect it. It's just the chalk lines are close together and they start to give you beautiful blending. Here we're lit to the right, upper right here, because we see her shadows all to the left, and we have the lower, a little bit lower right light coming down. Of course, we have the cast shadows and everything pushed compositionally back this way. But great control of line work, line weight. Core shadow, we see the reflected light on the edge of her leg there inside here. We see this beautiful form of the breast, egg form shadow, and then cast shadow in through here, and then cast shadow onto her body form, the ending of the body, and cast shadow onto the pillow as well. More chalk drawing by Boucher, resting female with a cherub, attending cherub. Again, quintessential Boucher style with the beautiful Roccoco stylings, a soft quality, stumped over, blended, and then heightened back with darks and darker, thicker lines, and also cross contouring. So it'd be nice to see this very elegant hand, very softly rendered female hand moving down in this direction. Look at the fingers, almost drawn from a kind of stylistic memory. This very elongated upper joint, lower joint to the condyle, super elongated, and then this super elongated distal joint here of the fingertip, and maybe a little bit of nail. Very, very super, kind of super long and awkward, but it gets it to great kind of thin, elegant effect. And I love the little pockets here of the condyles there, the carpals to the metacarpals that he gets. He digs in to get this kind of chubby, almost puffy quality, but also very long and elongated that you see from this drawing. And then lastly, our last model, back to a eroticized Boucher female form in graceful, beautiful pose, done from life, beautiful movement, beautiful control of 3 different chalk forms, using the very soft chalk in the darker chalk in the back to give a little bit of weight to the model, to the pillow tone and the darker brunette hair there, and they're very soft, fleshy figure in the curvatures of the model, and a side pose through there, elegantly placed and rested on the kind of this pillowy area right in through here, and then this graceful position of the feet. Beautiful contouring approach, very soft contour, and then a very soft stumped and slightly blended, and then contouring line back onto the model. And I love the hand that's kind of disappears anatomically through here and then reemerges back up there. Just a beautiful pose and rendering by the very great draftsman Boucher.